ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምን ሰንብታችኋል? እንግዲህ ባለፈው ሳምንት እንደቀጠለ ዛሬም Empower the Community Weekend በሚለው ኮንፈረንስ ላይ ኦገስት 22 ላይ ካደረግነው ቆይታ የመጨረሻውና ሶስተኛውን ክፍል ይዘንላችሁ ቀርበናል። እንግዲህ በዛሬ የምትመለከቷቸው እንግዶች በተለያዩ የሥራ መስክ ላይ የተሰማሩ በወጣትነታቸው ትልቅ ቦታ ላይ የደረሱ ኢትዮጵያውያንና ኤርትራውያን ወጣቶችን እንደዚሁም ደግሞ የማህበራዊና የዜግነት ግዴታቸውን እየተወጡ ያሉ በጣም የሚሳተፉ የሚጥሩ ወጣት እንግዶች ያደረጉትን ፓነል ዲስከሽን ይዘንላችሁ ቀርባለን። እስቲ ወደዛ ልወሰዳችሁና ተከታተሉ።
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel. Of course, this is the Black Lives Matter and Immigrant Experience panel. Well, we are joined by phenomenal guests here today to walk us through their experiences and share some advice as we all walk on this journey to fight for justice. I'll be hosting and moderating this panel. A little bit about me. I'm a journalist and the founder of the Promote Positivity movement, which advocates for the community and various causes. Just want to say a big thank you to the entire Empower the Community Weekend team. And of course, Helen for her leadership for bringing this event to life. So let me tell you about our amazing panelists who have not only made history in their respective fields, but have also really worked hard to just really make a difference and make this world a better place. A little bit about Nate. Nate is a rising freshman at Cornell University and recently finished his term on the Montgomery Board of Education at just 17 years old. After being elected by more than 85,000 students, Nate has fought to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, desegregate the county's schools, and he's the first Ethiopian American elected to the school board. Rakik Getana she works in accounting for her day job and owns Toasty Services, which is a staffing company for private events and festivals. Over the summer, she led protests all around Atlanta in response to police brutality and the ongoing oppression, fighting for justice, equality, and equity. Omar is a former member of the Baltimore County Board of Education for Baltimore County Public Schools, representing more than 115,000 students, and a current member of the Baltimore County Equitable Policing Workshop under the county executive. He's a freshman attending the George Washington University. Welcome, all three of you all. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So the first question for all three of you all, at what point did you realize you had to get out there? You couldn't just sit at home. You couldn't just stay where you were. You needed to either go run for a position or literally go out into the streets during a pandemic to protest and fight for justice. Why don't we start with Nate and then we'll go to Omar and then Rakik.
Sure. So for me, the first event was when I was in 7th grade, and basically I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland, and over here, this is a segregated portion of the district where a bunch of our schools have a high concentration of poverty, and in the same location, in the same area, not too far away from us, we have very affluent neighborhoods, affluent schools. We have very clear segregation. And so when I was in 2nd grade, I didn't recognize that my school deserved better up until somebody said that. And right then and there, I recognized that all the ESOL students, the English learner students that were in my school, all the immigrant students, the Black and brown students, they weren't receiving the money that they needed. They weren't being cared for just as folks in other schools were being cared for. My community was essentially left to fail while a bunch of our politicians and political leaders were just putting lip service and just talking about what they would do instead of actually doing things. And so when I recognized that basically we are underfunding our high poverty schools in a district that has a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, billions and billions of dollars. And when I figured that folks are not actually listening to the marginalized and the minority students of this county, I recognize that there should be some leader out there who should fight for a bunch of the students that are essentially underserved, the students that have potential, but their potential is not being tapped into because those resources are put towards those affluent schools, if you see what I'm saying. And so basically, I was fed up with this whole process of what's been going on. And thankfully in Montgomery County, I was able to run for the school board and essentially bring those voices up, just as I mentioned. There hasn't actually been an African-American student board member since, for 14, 15 years now. And I was the first one to be in there. And that just shows that, where are our priorities as a county that's majority minority? You know, where are our leaders who are actually supposed to be there when the time, or at least when they need to fight for us? And I was just tired of a bunch of the lip service that I've been seeing. And so when I got elected to the school board, one of the things that I got done, for example, was get $500,000 for more counselors that help international students and English learners. I was able to fight for the desegregation of our schools. I was fed up in 7th grade, so I turned my pain, my fear, and my just frustrations into advocacy after that.
Yes, turn that pain into advocacy. We love to see it a little bit more. Omar and Rakik, how about you all? What was that turning point for you?
So for me personally, I moved here to Baltimore County about almost 3 years ago now. I had lived in Ethiopia my whole life, and moving from like a third world country to coming to Baltimore County, Pikesville, especially like particularly Pikesville High School where I went was a predominantly white school, and it clicked for me when I took my first AP class, and I walked in there, and I'm pretty sure I was the only student of color in there. So for me, that was pretty overwhelming. I mean, just coming from a third world country and then just being completely different in the classroom, I was just like, should I be here? Am I supposed to be here? And that made me feel a certain type of way. If it wasn't for my teacher, like really pushing me to stay in the class and dedicating me to the work, I feel like I would have dropped it instantly because I just did not feel comfortable being there. And I feel like that's how a lot of students feel. And that showed me coming here that the disproportion of how a certain amount of students are supposed to take a certain amount of classes and another set of kids are supposed to take another set of classes. And that's just like the standard we have. And that's when I decided, hey, like, okay, I realized that a lot of students of color, immigrants, ESOL students don't get the opportunity to take these AP classes, GT classes. They aren't involved in the extracurriculars. And it's not because, hey, like, oh, like, they don't want to. It's just the way that it's like not provided towards them really changed your mindset. If it wasn't for my 3 older sisters pushing me to take the AP classes, talking to my counselors, forcing them to put me in those classes, I would have never taken an AP class. I feel like I don't think I would have gotten there. So for me, when I heard about the chance to run for student member of the Board of Education, I jumped to it. It was a little hard for me coming from Ethiopia. My English wasn't that great back then. I didn't really have good communication skills, stuff like that. But I really worked past that, and I believe that the underrepresented population is what allowed me to win. We have an amazing school system, but it is really segregated. You come to one side, Pikesville, where I went, it's like really nice techie school. And then you go to the other side, Lansdowne, where their staircases are literally about to fall off. And you're just confused. It's like, what is going on? You learn about how the boundary studies are done, the way they work things. I think Nate can understand where I'm talking about this more, but it was just completely eye-opening to me. And I realized, okay, like, I have to get up there and say something. We've done several work where we got ESOL students a chance to get transportation to and from sports and extracurricular activities, because we all know that like a lot of the growth that happens to us doesn't just happen in the classroom. A lot of what has happened to me, let me grow, was on the soccer field, was in my DECA club, stuff like that. But ESOL students didn't get that chance because they were brought in from different sections of the county to two particular schools. So they didn't have transportation home. So we got them transportation. Right now, especially with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, we got the board to pass a Black Lives Matter resolution that stated, hey, like BCPS knows and understands that Black Lives Matters, and we will do what we can to support that, which means hiring more teachers, getting a diverse curriculum, and a lot more that we've been doing. But for me, that's how it all started. In Ethiopia, I was more of a shy, quiet kid, but when I saw something that was a little different here and something that didn't work with me, I had to step up and say something.
For you to come from Ethiopia to the DMV, to the US, and just jump right in without hesitation. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy, of course, but kudos to you for really coming in and owning this space and knocking down so many barriers. And, to you and Nate, thank y'all for the work you're doing. It really is amazing, and it's making such huge differences. Rakik, let's go over to you now because, I know this has been such a powerful journey with you being in Atlanta and being out there on the front lines during a pandemic, for more than, 40 days, almost 50 days straight. You were out in the streets protesting. What was that moment that you were just like, you know what, I need to get out there? Why did you get out there?
Yeah, so for me, I guess I was a late bloomer because growing up, I was raised here, but I was born in Ethiopia. So I think when I grew up, and since I never experienced those disabilities, it kind of was like it didn't pertain to me. So I guess I didn't think it was my battle. I didn't think it was my fight. So I think what really stood out to me and what really made me change my mind and made me outraged was George Floyd. Seeing that video that weekend, I will never forget that weekend. When I tell you, that whole weekend, before I went to sleep, all I did was see that image, and I just sat there and cried and was like, wow, this is the world, and this is what it came to. Like, and when I saw that, it made me upset with myself, because I was like, wow, it took somebody getting there, being stood on with somebody's knee for this long, for me to wake up and be outraged and say, hey, this is enough, and I'm gonna go do something. And when that happened, when you experience that and you're disappointed with yourself, you can't sit here and try to justify it by saying, oh, well, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. Like, I was angry with myself. So with that anger, it made me, and me and you had a conversation, because we're both the co-founders of the Light of Solidarity. So when we had that conversation, I just remember just being so outraged, and both of us were sharing our experiences and how sad and how we wanted to do something and do something to make a difference or change or something. We just didn't want to sit around. And that's when we, started protesting every single day. It's almost, I don't even know how many days it is now. I think it's almost like 75 days of consistent protesting every single day. For 50 days, 51 days, we stayed on the streets, come together every single day, and want to learn and want to find ways to change the system. It makes you want to keep going every single day. So
yeah, it certainly does make you want to keep going, and and every step makes a difference. Everyone's going to fight in different ways. You're going to have people who are protesting in the streets. You're going to have people who are protesting in the corporate world. You're going to have people who are protesting in legislation. You're going to have people protesting in so many different ways. And we do have a comment here that I would love to share from Tizita Roro. She says, attend local town council and board of education meetings. Most are virtual and accessible now. It's a really good way to know issues, changes, and decisions impacting your community. Also good to know who is representing you and making decisions.
That is a really good comment, because when I tell you the amount of people that have no idea about board meetings or any of the legislation or anything getting passed, anything getting done, anything that directly affects the community, they have no clue about it. I promise you, there's a certain demographic that comes to all board meetings, is a part of all the decision making, and then there's the rest of us, which is mostly us African Americans and us minorities who have no say in it. It's not that we don't want to, it's just we honestly have no clue. My dad recently started going to all the board meetings, getting in touch with local news, stuff like that. It's no longer a CNN thing where you're just watching what's going on in the broader view, but he's more local now, what's affecting our community, what's affecting my family. And I think a lot of Habeshas in particular and us need to shift to that. I know we're always watching news. CNN's always on in my house. But try to put on your local news station. Try and see what's happening locally to you and what's impacting communities, how you can help. I know a lot of us, we can get into volunteering. That's one way that you can help out your community. That doing it. Volunteering is the biggest thing you can do, honestly. And I have a passion for volunteering, and I know once anyone starts it, it's just like, it's a drive. Like you feel so good. You do it to be selfish. You feel so good about yourself once you're doing it. But to touch on more of what you guys asked, and Nate basically covered it all, but if you honestly have a passion for something and think that you can make a change, and you start making like even like very little noise, and it's good noise and it's passionate noise, like, and people really see that you're passionate about it, you will have a following. People will follow in your footsteps. People will support you. Like Nate said, like running campaigns, stuff like that. That takes a lot of effort. You need to have a team. You need to have people that actually believe in you. I don't think I spent a single dime on my campaign for anything, flyers, having people run my social media, anything like that. I don't think I spent a single penny, because I had people who believed in me and believed in what I was trying to do, and they were supporting me. And I promise you that, like Nate said, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of research, a lot of sitting on a computer. I know Nate knows, but once you're even in this positions, it's like days of work all the time, like reading through board education meeting pamphlets, resolutions, any boundaries. Like you're just constantly researching, constantly reading, constantly knowing what's going on. And that really matters, especially for, like, first of all, for people like me and Nate who are like only 17, 18 years old. So we tend to not be taken as seriously. So we really have to know what's going on more than anyone else in the room. And I know that it's the same for minorities, African Americans. No matter what you do, there are going to be people who are going to undermine you, not going to take your, like, you're just not taken as seriously. Like your seat is probably like a level 9 instead of a level 10 just because you're an African American. So just because of that, we have to do 10 times the research, 10 times the work just to be even at the same level as them. But we all know, like, hey, like, we might even be better than them. But let's not go there.
We're so happy that you all tuning in are really engaged in this conversation. We see some awesome comments. Thank you all so much. Let us know what city you're in. I know we have Atlanta, we have LA, we have Maryland in the building. What other cities are you all tuning in from? We want to shout those out. And want to take it back. Of course, we got Virginia, Seattle, Jersey in the building. Loving all of this, okay? In every single one of those communities, we have the power to use our votes, as we all know, right? And it's not enough to just vote. We need to protect our votes. We got to vote early. We got to, vote. If we need to vote by mail, we got to use Dropbox locations. We can't rely on the mail system right now. We need to research our candidates. We need to know who we're voting for. And we need to understand that we're not just voting for a president this November. We're voting for local representatives. We're voting for state representatives. We are voting for so much more. There's so much on the ballot this November. So all of us have an obligation, in my opinion, to not just be in this chat telling us to vote and talking to each other. Go talk to 5 friends. Go talk to your mosque community. Go talk to your church community. Go talk to your friends at brunch, virtual brunch, or virtual happy hour these days. Share that message. And Rakik and I are currently working on a census campaign through social media. If anyone is interested in participating, please message Promote Positivity Movement on Instagram. We would love to have you be a part of it, because you all, social media gives you so much influence. You can literally use your page, if you have 100 followers or 1 million followers, to reach people, to share information with people. Do not hesitate, y'all. Do not hesitate. I know we have a journalist here, Sara Bakala, an amazing, amazing journalist in Nebraska who's, or excuse me, not Nebraska, but she used to live in Nebraska, and she's doing wonderful work. She's using her role as a journalist to share these stories, to highlight these stories. So Rakik, I want to take it over to you, because, we talk about voting, but talk about the significance of local elections and how big these are, because you all mentioned, how we need to get more engaged in these meetings and, knowing who our reps are and all that kind of stuff. Why are the local elections so important, Rakik?
Sure. So one of the reasons why local elections are so important is because, one, it impacts you and your community the most. When you have your sheriff, when you're voting for your sheriff and you're voting for Board of Education members and things like that, those are impacting your community, your kids, your people. So with that being said, it's so important for local elections, because it's impacting you on a day-to-day basis. And also another thing is that, voting for president is very important. but you are with I think it's 130 million people that vote. You know, there's millions of people that are voting for the presidential election, and yes, it is important to vote for your president. But when you're voting for local offices, it's you're voting, and it's like 20,000 people, 30,000, 40, 50,000 people. So your voice means so much more when you're 1 in 20,000, 1 in 30,000 versus 1 in 130 million. So your voice, not only does it impact you the most, I guess, but it also is heard the most.
Yes, it absolutely is so important, because it touches, you can literally walk to these representatives. They live in your communities, they live in your neighborhoods, you can touch them, see them. So it's really, really important that we understand that. And with you all doing this important work, right? It's very, very important, whatever city you're in. I know we have, you know, Nebraska in the building, like I said, LA, Seattle, Atlanta, Maryland, Virginia, and so many more. And we just ask that all of us continue to push voting, push the census, push civic engagement, and all of that. Let's be honest though, this fight has its ups and downs, right? This journey has high moments and low moments. And I know Rakik's been in tears, I've been in tears. It's hurt, it's a painful journey. When you look at what happened over the summer, a lot of us saw what happened to George Floyd, and we were in pain, and we were angry, and we were sad, and we were heartbroken on the heels of what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, what's happened to countless brothers and sisters over the years. So I want to ask you three, how do you sort of manage to push through those moments where you feel down? Because I know it can be hard, but what are some things that are able to help you push when it gets really, really tough? Let's start with Omar, and then we'll go to Nate, and then we'll keep.
So for me, it's people like Nate. Let's say I'm having a bad day where, something went wrong with a community leader I was trying to reach out to, or I just am really overwhelmed. I'll FaceTime Nate, and he'll give me some of his energy, and whenever he needs something, he'll give me some of his energy. So my answer to that is my community. My community really supports me that way, and I hope to do that. I hope to do the same for them. And yeah, that's just my straight answer: my community and Nate.
Oh, it's so inspiring. Nate, how about you?
So, same with Omar. Also, I think one thing that I do to sort of push me through those times is just I don't know how healthy it is. Obviously, I sold my console recently, but before that was a little stress reliever. 2K, all that stuff.
FIFA.
Definitely, when times got rough, I just channeled that pain, that anxiety into more work. I made myself more determined to fight for whatever issue that is. If I saw that it was racism in an environment, then that made me recognize that there's racism in classrooms. How do you change the implicit bias by teachers on race and religion? I mean, it's those type of things where I sort of didn't let myself get down by a situation. People like Omar would help me out of those situations, but also I just turned it into work. I was determined to make sure that situation didn't happen to another person, by which I have the power to change something for them.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I have those relationships and that power, not just the relationships, but the power that you have. That's really amazing. Rakik, how about you? And I just want to say, Rakik, she is we work together. We co-organized the protest in Atlanta for about 50 days. And that's my sister. I would not have been able to do any of it without her. So I'm so grateful for you and all that you do. And yes, what keeps you going, sis?
Yeah, I'm going to start off by saying you and my community and the people that come to our protests every single day. It's like a family that we have, and we lift each other up when this is a hard fight. So we lift each other up when, some days when we're feeling weary and when one person's not, feeling the best. But yeah, it definitely takes a community of like-minded individuals to help you keep going. And then another thing is that, we stand on the necks of the ancestors that, or the shoulders, not the necks, I'm sorry, the shoulders of the ancestors that have fought for this. So it is a hard battle, but, you know, things are better today than they were 50 years ago, and 50 years before that, and 50 years before that. So it takes people that know that this fight is going to take longer than their existence, but I'm going to put my sleeves up, pull my sleeves up, and I'm going to do whatever I can to keep the torch going. Because if we fumble this, when ancestors came to slavery, and you know, we actually watched the movie yesterday, Harriet Tubman. We have screenings on Fridays on the Promote Positivity movement, the virtual protest. We watched Harriet yesterday, and just seeing, you know, people like Harriet Tubman that dedicated their lives to helping people be free, that they didn't even know. They were just like, these are people that are my community. These are my brothers and sisters, and I know how slavery is, and I'm not gonna keep doing it. So it takes people that are fed up with it and that are willing to pull their sleeves up and say, "Hey, I'm gonna do whatever I can. I know I can't change the world, but hey, it takes people like me. It takes a million people that want to do whatever they can, the little bit that they can, to change the world."
Yeah, it does. And every single one of us has the potential to be a change maker, you know. And remember, y'all, the fight is far from over. The fight is far from over. We are overturning centuries of hate, oppression, racism. It didn't end just because summer and the uprising, you know, sort of, it looks different right now than it did at the start of the summer. It's very much still present. So we are urging you all to do your part, get involved, do something. At this point, we have about 4 more minutes left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a quote, because it was going to be a Congressman John Lewis, who of course is one of our idols, one of our heroes, a civil rights giant who fought until the very end of his life. And I know that Nate shared a tribute. He had a photo where he met him, shared that on his Instagram page. Rakik and we got to meet him or see him 3 weeks before he passed in Atlanta in Georgia. Literally, he fought until he passed away. He was at the Congress fighting 3 weeks before he passed away. Can y'all believe that? This man dedicated his entire life. And so, of course, we have a quote here from Tizata that says, "Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble." So thank you for sharing that quote. I want to ask you three, how do you plan to continue making good trouble on this journey to justice? And what are ways people can stay connected with you all? We'll start with Omar, Nate, and Rakik.
For me, I want to start off with a quote. Like you said, it's also from John Lewis. If you see something that is not right, that is not fair, that is not just, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. And for me, I think that this is just my starting point, and I'm just getting started for this fight in justice. Right now, I'm going to be attending George Washington University, and I think so from there on, I think is where I'm going to do more of what I can already. I'm in a lot of volunteering organizations right now. I'm going to stick to that for now while I kind of drift through school. But right after school, be sure to catch me. I'm pretty sure I'll be talking to most of you, connecting with a lot of you, but I'm definitely not stopping anytime soon. I know Nate isn't. But yeah, that's definitely something I carry with me, that quote right there.
Awesome. Thank you. Keep making that good trouble. Nate, what about you? And you can go ahead and share your quote as well.
Yeah. For me, it's 2 quotes. One is definitely by Obama, which is that a change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things. And the other quote is that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere by MLK. So
I have a poster.
Right? That's powerful, and it will stay and stick with me throughout my advocacy. Yeah, exactly. You guys frame it, style it, throw it on your bumper and everything, right?
Right.
Basically, over the past few years, I recognize that first off, it's, you don't necessarily just have to post about something or sit down and be quiet. If you're willing to change whatever situation you're in, if I'm in college at a college campus and I see something that shouldn't be happening, or if I see something that's happening at another college campus that isn't happening at mine, which connects to this quote, that's that justice in any other location is a threat to justice in any or everywhere else, right? It's a threat to justice in the location that I'm in. If I see someone suffering somewhere else, whether it's their meal swipes for college campuses, or whether it's their housing situation somewhere else, I'm going to get together with a few friends and I'm going to try to be preventative in those actions. I'm going to try to make sure that whatever is happening anywhere else is not happening where I'm at. It's simply causing the good trouble in your own community. And that's what John Lewis stood for. That's what I'll keep fighting for. And those people, those Black leaders are who inspires me to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Every single one of them. And you are the future. You, Omar, Rakik, this generation will be the next generation of John Lewis's, of C.C. Vivian's, of Harriet Tubman, of Rosa Parks, of all of these greats who came before you all. Rakik, what is your quote and your final way of how you're going to keep making good trouble?
Sure. So my quote is from John Lewis. It is, the vote is precious. It is almost scarce. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in a democracy. And it's so powerful because it's so true. And people have been fighting to vote for years, and they've wanted to press our vote for years because of how important it is. Voting is, you can't change anything else until you change voting. How can you change the justice system if you don't vote those people out? If you don't get new people to change the system? How do you change health disparities and inequalities in the healthcare system for Black and brown people if you're not voting for elected officials that are aligned with those issues? So it's so important to vote, and that's one thing that I'm going to do to continue to cause good trouble is to get people registered to vote, because it's so important. Your voice directly correlates with how you feel that this country should be. And I feel that most of the people in this country are good people and they want to help other people. So that's why voting is so important. That's why, the right for the freedom of speech is so important, because it's those things that help change the system, change the world. Because when people speak and voice their concerns, and there's enough people that say, hey, this is wrong, hey, we need to go and get this person out of here because they're not doing what I voted them in here to do, then that's when change happens. So that's why voting is such an important tool to keep this fight and to keep this good trouble going, because without your vote, you don't have a voice. So you can't voice your opinion on the outcome of this country.
You absolutely can't. You absolutely can't. We must continue using our voices. Everyone, please give these panelists a round of applause. Thank you all.
Hi, everybody. All right. We just want to say thank you so much for showing up and joining us virtually. My name is Sara Bakala. I am going to be your host for today. Today's panel that we're going to have is the Trailblazers panel. We've got really great individuals that you're going to hear from today. We're going to be talking about their past, their experiences, and road to their success. We'll also hear some stories, some lessons learned, and get to talk more about how they incorporate the culture into their work. So again, we have Jonas, Ruth, and Luam, who are extraordinary individuals that we have in our community. We're so excited to have you guys. Just a little bit about me. My name is Sara Bakala. I'm founder and CEO of Habesha Networks. We're a global organization that supports our community in all the different cities that we're in. So our goal is to connect, give resources, and help all the Habeshas that we have around the world. But today we're going to talk and get to know more about you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Luam, who is a choreographer, creative director, and has established so much working with different brands and individuals. And we really just want to hear more about how you got to where you got to and where you come from and hear more about your experiences. So please.
Well, thanks for having me. Every artist has a journey, and I think mine is no different. I was born in Asmara many years ago, and I grew up in Philly, and then eventually, moved around, and I went to college at UPenn, and that's kind of where I started like loving dance. But I was pre-med. That was my thing. You'd be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, the whole thing. And I finished that way. And then after college, I decided to kind of continue, like work in corporate America, doing like technology, taking some time before med school, which didn't happen. And during that time, I was living in New York. So New York, is the mecca to me of, the artist community in a lot of ways. And that's where I fell in love with dance. And I just really immersed into it. And, I would have my suit and briefcase by day and my sweats and like big hair by night. It was like a movie. It was crazy. But eventually, came to this like fork in the road where it's like, what are you going to do? Then like my company went through something crazy and then, everybody was fired or let go. So then I was like, I guess I got to go to grad school, but I'm going to take time before that to pursue, dance and choreography. And that time just kept extending until now. So, it was definitely very hard fought. I was a little bit of the black sheep in a way, because I was kind of doing what you weren't supposed to do. You're going this way, we were straight and narrow, and then I literally went left. And this was before dance was really seen as a career choice, and people didn't really understand it. They thought it was some kind of like not okay situation, and not necessarily like a career as a performer and creator.
Jonas. So Jonas, if you guys don't know, is CEO and founder of StackShare, which is a startup tech firm in San Francisco. So we'd love to hear about you and your experiences, Jonas.
Sure. So yeah, I'll try to keep it short. But basically, I started off studying business in undergrad at University of Maryland. Also, I was born and raised in the DC area in Silver Spring. And I went to University of Maryland, studied business. And what you're supposed to do after that is go into consulting. So I did that, management consulting. I worked in IT strategy for about a year and a half. And I hated it. I was not really used to like, a lot of structure. And I actually read this book called Founders at Work, which was by Jessica Livingston. And it's a book about startup founders, all the founders of the big tech companies like Amazon, Google, all in one book. So I was really inspired by that. And I quit my job and decided to try to get into tech. I tried to apply to a few different jobs, couldn't get them. So I ended up going to grad school for human-computer interaction at University of Maryland. And it was basically a software design program. So I started to get more into design, and basically I ended up out here in the Bay Area in Mountain View, specifically working for a startup that a couple of my friends had that I met through the program had joined. And long story short there, I basically just decided to stay. I just fell in love with just the whole area and how it was basically you needed to be there if you wanted to start a tech company. So I dropped out of the master's program. So I finished the first year and then didn't continue after that and just stayed, and started to work on a bunch of different side projects. And one of them was StackShare, and eventually became what it is today. So it wasn't a very planned out thing. I think that for me, it was very much just about wanting to get into tech and just doing whatever it took to get into tech, whether that was going to school or, working for a startup. I was actually an intern at that startup, so it wasn't like I even had a real job there. So yeah, that was kind of my journey. And now having been here in the Bay for I think 8 years. It's just, yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I always encourage people to like start anywhere, just start, and then you'll figure out your way eventually to where you need to be. So today, StackShare is a platform for over 500,000 software developers to figure out which technologies they should use to build apps and infrastructure. So that's kind of what we've built, and I'm happy to dive into the details there. But yeah, that's the short version.
Ruth B, who's a singer and songwriter from Canada. She is a certified platinum artist that we are so excited to have and hear more about your experiences in entertainment and how you've been able to just explode in the last couple of years and do so much great work. So please take it away.
Of course, thank you. So happy to be part of this. And yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter from Edmonton, Alberta, and I kind of started music professionally, I guess, like 5 years ago. But growing up, I'd always loved writing poetry, reading books, singing, playing piano, all of that. And then I think, yeah, it was a few years ago, I was a first-year student back in my hometown, and there was an app called Vine. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but that's kind of where I started. It just started as posting these like 6-second clips of me singing whatever covers, eventually turned into like songs that I would write. And yeah, long story short, I ended up posting this Vine of a lyric that I had written to a song called Lost Boy, which eventually ended up becoming this song that inevitably changed my life. But yeah, I kind of was always singing around the house, always loved music. And the whole like career aspect of it kind of just happened over time without me really even realizing it. Once I started taking it seriously, though, that's when it became like an actual grind and work. But kind of getting to that first step happened pretty organically for me, I would say.
I'd love to hear more about kind of what struggles and challenges that you guys have faced. Especially a lot of you guys are young children of immigrants. There's a lot that comes with that. So I'd love to hear within your respective fields, kind of what struggles that you had faced to get to and be able to grow within the field that you're in. So Jonas, if you'd like to start with it.
Yeah, sure. I think that there's different challenges at different stages. I think in tech, if you're trying to start a company, initially there's just like standard problems of how do you put together a team? How do you get an idea that you feel like has legs? How do you put together a team? How do you get funding? So there's just a lot of different challenges. I'll just highlight one that I feel like would probably resonate with a lot of people is just on the funding side. Initially, I had no money to start my company. And so I don't even know if my parents know this, but like the first thing I did was like I just cashed out my 401k from my previous job, which is not, I highly recommend that you don't do that. But it was like a year and a half worth of it. And then I had credit cards that I just put a bunch of expenses on. So I was in a situation where I didn't have money to start the company, but I had enough money to just like live really cheaply. So I did that. And, the biggest challenge I think you face early on is like, how do you get people to believe in this thing and give you money for this thing before it actually exists? And so I think what helped with that was just being willing to be like really cheap, just not worrying about money in the beginning, in terms of like having all the things that you're used to. And then just doing whatever it takes to survive, like there was a point at which, I was doing consulting for StackShare, like because we needed money and people wanted advice on how to develop products for software developers. And I had built up some things that, made me sort of like, made it so that I had some expertise there, and they paid me to do that. And a lot of investors say that's a bad idea. Like, don't do consulting. You should just work on your product, on your website. But at the end of the day, you got to just do whatever you got to do to survive. And That's what I did early on, and that's what I encourage everyone to do, is like, don't worry about what you're supposed to do, just worry about what you have to do to survive and get to the next point. And do it yourself at first if you can't find the money from other people. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge early on, was trying to get funding. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Ruth?
Yeah, for me, I would say, yeah, with music, there's definitely a fair share of struggles that any artist would go through, kind of similar to what Luam said. I think definitely I resonated with the whole, like, getting your community and your family behind you can sometimes be a little difficult. As a Habesha, I think ultimately your family just wants what's best for you. And for me, I know that, like, a career in music seemed pretty, like, far out there and unattainable just based off of where I'm from. Even, like, Edmonton, Alberta, it's very foreign concept to think of doing music. But I think, again, similar to what Luam had said, once my family and my community started to see that I was able to, like, make something out of it and, like, get a good response, and also, like, just stay true to who I was. I think that was, like, the biggest fear with everything, is that I would, like, move out to New York or LA and, like, completely change and, like, forget who I was. But I think having that support from my family, and you know, my dad was super involved in, like, every contract and every, like, deal I ever made or whatever it was. And that was, like, really helpful for me. I don't think I could have navigated all of that without that. So, yeah, in that sense, I think in the beginning it can be a little difficult. But again, once people start to see that they're good can come out of it, I think the support was definitely there for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, because it's harder to do what you love to do and be in that space if you don't have that support and the community. So, yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Luam?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna. Yeah, everything both of them said, I think, resonates regardless. It's all just trying to build something out of nothing, and, you know, making sure that, you know, it's survival of the fittest out there in many industries. And, you know, aside from just the things that you have to go through to make sure that you stay who you are, you keep your identity and you keep your community and your family, there's also just, like, navigating the industry, which is very difficult for any person. And, you know, creating a name for yourself from zero, it's all on you, and looking around and feeling like everyone's passing you, and trying to stay relevant, trying to have a great brand, trying to stay working. At the end of the day, in an industry where work is not guaranteed ever, that's the struggle that never ends, really. And just getting to a place where you build consistency in your career and brand. And also you want to be happy, you know, and I think making sure that, you know, what you're doing is still fulfilling and is still doing, you know, you're still building. Getting to that point is not easy for anybody. So I think everyone needs to love the work and to love the grind, you know, not love the trappings of it or what you get from it, because we spend most of our time in the work.
That's real. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the culture, right? Because that's what we're here for. So I want to talk and ask you guys different questions, but around how the culture has impacted you and the work that you're doing. So I'm going to start with Luam. Tell me a little bit about how your cultural background from being from Eritrea has affected you and your interest, and how you know, even your career choice and everything that you're doing. How do you incorporate the culture with it?
I think, you know, there's this, like, duality of mind creatively that I am so thankful for. Like, I have a whole like culture of inspiration to pull from, that someone who wasn't born with or has that culture or has that, like, I'm thankful for that. You know, it gives me a different perspective. It gives me a different way of looking at things. It gives me different, like, taste making, you know what I mean? It allows me to be more unique in my art, because that is something unique about me, you know? Yeah. So it allows me to separate myself, or not separate, you know, like kind of establish myself differently, you know? So for me, it's always helped me internally. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? Externally, it's funny because I'm always looking for ways to incorporate. Fun fact, when it comes to dance, I'm such a fan of the dance in our culture, but I feel like I can't do it anymore. I feel like I'm so Americanized. So I'm super fascinated by it. Like, I'm like, if I try to do that, probably looks super awkward. It's like weird. So I feel like, you know, where I am in my career, this is a time where I can actually bring it to the forefront and use that as like a platform to say, hey, there's this other cool sort of like, you know, I don't know, whether it's a documentary or a performance, I want to do that more. But in my industry, it's been hard to find ways to insert that in a way that doesn't appropriate our culture. Because at the end of the day, I'm, you know, giving someone else a show. It's not my music, it's not my words, you know? So I've been very careful at protecting, you know, what cultural inspirations I use. You know, for Beyonce, I just thought that was like a huge, you know, female empowerment moment with the shoulders. And I just, you know, my mom was excited about it. That's all I wanted, you know? Yeah. But beyond that, you know, I feel like using our culture in terms of movement and all of that, I'm very protective of it, and I want to highlight it in a very specific way, and I'm waiting for my time, and maybe that's a future question. But in terms of how it's impacted me, it's been interesting. In the beginning, I got a lot of opposition, but you know, as times have changed, people like social media, dance shows, all of that's changed. So people are more hip to what really goes on with dance and how, you know, how much goes into it. People are more appreciative and people understand it more. So I feel like there has been a lot of come around, a lot of full circle moments with the community and the family understanding what I do and appreciating it. And either way, I'm here for the culture. Yeah. But it's definitely been a struggle at times.
I feel that. Jonas, I know for you it's a little different because you've been really engaged with Ethiopia specifically, going back and working with tech firms. I know you do things with nonprofits. So for you, how has it been actually going back and sharing your resources to the motherland?
It's been, I think, an interesting journey, because I think naturally as Habesha people, we don't like gravitate towards tech for whatever reason. You know, like just thinking back, I didn't know anyone in tech when I first came out here, even though obviously, you know, I knew a lot of Habesha people. So I think part of what I've been trying to do is just try to get more of us into this. And fortunately, there are a lot of Habeshas in tech. We started a group out here called EthiopiansInTech.org. And it's just like this collection of people that are all working at different companies in tech, whether it's, you know, Facebook or LinkedIn or Snapchat, whatever it is. Everyone's just sort of in one group. So part of what I've been trying to do is bring people together, just because we do have that shared culture. And then on the other side of that, how do we actually have an impact back home, you know? So we've done a few different events in Addis Ababa. We did one with Ice Addis, which was like a pitch workshop where, you know, we met with a handful of startups and gave them feedback on their pitch. And then we also were part of the Startup Ethiopia event last year that was put on by a number of people in Ethiopia, including Blue Moon. So, you know, we've done what we can. And I think it's always a balance of like, how do you, you know, do what you need to do here, but then also, you know, have an impact back home. So it's been a balance, and it's always tough to have the balance, but we do what we can. You know, we've hosted a couple of different EIT events, Ethiopian and Tech events at the Stackshare office when we had an office. So, you know, just doing what we can at every opportunity we get.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great that you're providing that resource to the community, especially the Bay Area tech community. So Ruth, tell us how for you the culture has influenced your music and songwriting, from what you've heard from different Habesha artists, if there's any Habesha artists that have influenced your work too. So.
Yeah, I think growing up, I definitely, my parents put a lot of Ethiopian music around the house, so I always say that probably subconsciously it's affected like the way that I write melodies and lyrics. As I'm sure all of you guys know, it's like a very rich type of music and culture and instrumentation. Yeah, I think in terms of involving it more in my music, not just my music, but my aesthetic, I recently parted with the label that I was working with, and I'm kind of starting fresh. And I think a big thing for me is like having key people who are also a part of the culture in my circle, and like not just my friends, but like the work as well. And like that's been important to me in my team, and they know that. And so it's been nice to kind of now work with other Habesha people and whatever capacity that might mean. But yeah, I think like the music aspect, it's definitely seeped its way into my writing. I recently, during COVID, I don't know if you guys know the instrument called the karat. It's an Ethiopian instrument, but I recently picked that up and started trying to play.
You have it on you?
Yeah, my dad has one at home. So no, I'm not at home.
I know,
right
seriously,
now.
please.
That
I wish
would
you
be No, he has one at home, and I've always like looked at it, and I was like, I have nothing to do right now. Like, let me try. So I started tinkering with it, and honestly, like, I think it could be cool to like throw that on a song
That would be
or like
amazing.
whatever. Like, yeah. So just little things like that. I'm always kind of.
So what do you need from while we're here, what do you need from the Habesha community in order to get to these goals for all of you guys? What do you need from the community? And Jonas, you want to start? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, unrelated to those two things, I think, and you know about this, there's a group called the Ethiopia COVID-19 Response Team. And, you know, I've been working with the group, you've been working with the group. So I think it would be amazing just to see more people involved. You know, it's a group of volunteers of, you know, over 1,500 people, Habesha professionals from, you know, healthcare, from tech, from all different fields. So everyone go to ethiocovid19rt.com and join in. You know, the group is working closely with a few teams in Ethiopia, some of the treatment centers, Eka Kotebe and St. Peter's Hospital. And there's going to be a fundraiser pretty soon, as you know, Melat, for raising money for maintenance of ventilator equipment. So look out for the fundraiser. But yeah, ethiocovid19rt.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Ruth?
Yeah, I would say just, you know, as a musician, support is just always nice. If you like the song, tell a friend. But yeah, I think I've seen there's like a bunch of like Ethiopian Instagram or Habesha Instagram pages and whatnot that are like super supportive of Habesha artists, which is amazing. But I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just about if you like the music, share it. It always helps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Helen?
I just love to see, like, I know for me and for you guys too, probably, it's like whenever we see people, you know, our culture, like our people in our spaces, we're like excited and we want to lift them up, you know. But I think we need to all be each other's biggest fans. You know what I mean? Like we should. I feel like we should be the biggest like fan group of each other in each other's spaces. You know what I mean? And very loud.
Yeah.
We need to make noise as fans of each other, whether you're in music, whether you're in tech, whatever it is, we need to like come strong, because then we kind of all win, you know? And we just need to have a solidarity more than before in that way. And I think we have the platforms to do that now. We can do it a lot easier. So why aren't we taking over, you know, each other, like the support, like, okay, well, there goes the Habesha crew. Like, they always gonna be the loud ones. Like, let's be that, you know, because we need that support. We do. And, you know, even though it'll lift us up individually, then we'll bring everybody with us, you know? So I think for me, I love seeing other Habeshas in the spaces that I'm in, and I get excited and I'm like, hey, like I give them extra or I try. And that's what we should do. We should give each other extra at all times, you know? So, and then also, you know, check out my Rock Industry Online when it comes on, Rock On.
Yes.
You know.
Please, no, please. As there's anything that you guys, we have about a minute left. So if there's anything you guys want to say, some parting words, 30 seconds each, please. Anything you want to say?
Don't ever be comfortable, and don't be worried if you're uncomfortable. That means you're growing. Support each other. Let's continue to find each other, look for each other, all of that.
Yep, I would just say thank you for all the support. It means the world. I have a new song coming out on Friday, so if you guys want to check that out, feel free. But yeah, thanks for the support. I always, again, love to see the community doing well. So, and thank you guys for having me be part of this.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll just say the one thing I forgot to mention is this. I think people should just feel like there's no rules to the game. People get caught up in like, oh, you have to do these 3 things before you do this. Forget about it. There's no rules to the game. You can literally make up anything you want. So blaze your own path and do what you feel like is right. And then, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate y'all inviting us.
Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your talents to our community. We're proud of you and grateful to have you. So thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today. Be good to yourselves, be good to our community, be good to everyone. So love you guys. Thank you.
ተመልካቾቻችን እንግዲህ ባለፉት 3 ሳምንታት ያቀረብንላችሁ የተለያዩ ዝግጅቶች እንደተማራችሁባቸው ጠቃሚ ሆኖ እንዳገኛችኋቸው በመተማመን የዛሬ ፕሮግራማችን በዚህ ላይ ያበቃል። በሚቀጥለው ሳምንት በሌላ ፕሮግራም እስከምንገናኝ ደህና ቆዩልን።